Welcome back to video number 2 of Food 2016, and thanks for checking this out. We're going to be covering in this series the 6 simple steps that you can do to really make some positive changes in your health and your family's health. And the 6 steps, I'll just repeat them at the beginning here, are eating the right food, stopping eating the wrong foods, drinking water, exercise, giving your body a break, and the most important one, adding nutritional density. And as you can see, they truly are simple steps, but they also can be confusing and can be a challenge to follow. So I just want to share in today's video my journey, because I think that if you can understand where I was coming from, that might help you out in terms of seeing that it's a process and that it also doesn't really matter where you're starting. You can be anywhere on the continuum and still experience some wonderful benefits. I started my working life actually in the corporate world, and this is Colmar, France. I was very fortunate in that I was able to work for Reynolds Aluminum overseas, and I absolutely loved living in France. But I will tell you that it was challenging for me on the food front for a number of reasons. I didn't have access to some of my comfort foods, and the way that the French eat is very different than how we eat in the U.S. It certainly was back then. I think it's probably become a little more similar, but not much. And so the food was one of those huge cultural shifts that I experienced when I lived and worked in France. And I loved the way that they ate, but I did miss my American habits. And that was kind of the first time that I took in that there might be more than one way to eat, but I didn't really stay there very long. The corporate world wasn't a good fit for me. So what happened was I came back to the United States, and I decided to turn my hobby of teaching and training dressage horses and riders into a profession. And so this became my new office. This is an indoor riding arena, and I started working with a riding program. And I spent my day teaching horses and teaching riders. And I had about 85 students, and I had about 21 horses under my care. So I had an extremely busy schedule. And perhaps you can relate to this one as well. I really had no time to get to the grocery store, let alone prepare food and eat right. And the other time crunch is that my husband and I had 2 young daughters at this time. And I wanted them to eat correctly, but I just didn't have a lot of time. I was at the barn all the time. And also, I really didn't care that much about food. I just wasn't that into it. So long as I wasn't hungry, I was fine. So I kind of ate whatever was available. And there were some challenges for me too. You hear the phrase that breakfast is the most important meal. Well, I was never hungry in the morning, but I kind of knew I should eat something. And so what I ended up doing for breakfast was this: Hostess donuts. Not exactly the best thing to start your day off with in the morning, but they were fast, they were easy, they were inexpensive, they were in a package. I could just swing by Cumbies, pick it up, and take it, and they were palatable. They tasted well enough that I thought, all right, it's not great, but I'm eating something, and breakfast is the most important meal. And then I'd get to the barn and I'd start riding trainers and teaching lessons. And so I didn't really have time or access to eat a decent lunch. So this tended to be lunch for a lot of reasons. First of all, someone else could make it. I had help at the barn, and I could say, hey, make me a coffee. And they would make me one of these coffees, and it had sugar in it and had all sorts of other stuff in it. I look back now and realize it's pretty much just chemicals, but it tided me over. I wasn't really hungry for a big meal, and this was something that I could eat that was quick, and I could carry it while I was teaching and could just have something and stave off the hunger pains and get through the rest of the day without having to think about food. And so then I would go home, and this is what I would have for dinner. I had 2 things I would eat, either turkey tetrazzini or spinach souffle. And I literally would leave the barn, I'd call Henry, I'd say, I'm on my way home, throw one of those into the toaster oven or microwave, and that would be my dinner. And so my challenge was that I knew exactly how to feed and condition a horse down to the microgram. I knew how to get a horse ready and healthy and performing as an athlete, but I had no idea and really no interest in how to do that for myself. And what got my attention about that was when my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And what I realized was that I was very concerned about getting sick. And my understanding at the time was that cancer was a genetic disease, and I looked exactly like my dad's side of the family. And so that really set me into a bit of a panic, because I thought, this is real, this could happen to me. And I was losing my dad. It was not an easy time. My girls were little. I didn't want them to miss knowing my dad. So it really was a challenging moment in my life. And I said in video 1 that, you know, sometimes you need to have a fair amount of motivation to do this. And in my case, this was my motivation. I had a pretty significant wake-up call. And so doing some of the changes, making some of the changes I'm going to share with you in this video series will be easier or will be harder for you depending on that motivation. But hopefully you'll find a support group here with our system that will help you through this. And hopefully your reason why will also be substantial enough to carry the day. So in the next video, I'm going to go through step number 1, which is eating the right food, because I know that that is confusing. So look for video number 3 tomorrow, which will be discussing what the right food is, because I'm sure that if you're like most people and you've seen all sorts of conflicting evidence and articles and information out there about this is good for you, that's not good for you, this is bad for you, no, it's actually good for you. I'm going to just share with you some of the good science that's out there showing what the right food is and how you can add that to your routine and start making some healthy changes.